The abandoned warehouse stood like a forgotten giant on the edge of the industrial district. Rusted steel beams stretched toward the cracked ceiling, while broken skylights allowed narrow shafts of afternoon sunlight to pierce the darkness. Dust floated silently through the air. Every step echoed across the vast concrete floor, making the enormous building feel alive. For weeks, the warehouse had belonged to a violent organization known as the Iron Vipers. They were not ordinary criminals. Former mercenaries, underground fighters, and ruthless gang members had gathered under one leader, a man feared throughout the city simply as Black Dragon ***. They had stolen weapons, kidnapped innocent workers, and forced nearby factories to pay enormous amounts of money for protection. Anyone who refused disappeared. Police officers attempted several raids. None of them succeeded. Some never returned. Soon, fear spread through every neighborhood surrounding the industrial zone. Families locked their doors before sunset. Delivery trucks refused to enter the district. Workers abandoned their jobs rather than risk crossing paths with the gang. People whispered only one name: Bruce Lee. Not because he was stronger than everyone else. Because he never ignored people who could not defend themselves. Bruce sat quietly inside a small tea house several miles away. The room smelled of jasmine tea and old wood. Outside, the city continued its ordinary rhythm, unaware that only a few streets away an entire district lived under fear. An elderly factory owner entered slowly. His hands trembled. His face carried weeks of exhaustion. He bowed respectfully. "I know many people ask for your help," the old man said softly, "but today I have nowhere else to go." Bruce poured another cup of tea before answering. "What happened?" The old man's voice shook. "They have taken everything. They beat our workers. They burned one warehouse. They kidnapped my foreman because I refused to pay." Bruce remained silent. The old man reached into his pocket and placed a small photograph on the table. It showed dozens of smiling factory workers standing together after finishing construction of the building years earlier. Many of them were young fathers. Some were grandparents. Now several of those faces were missing. They're prisoners inside that warehouse. Bruce looked carefully at every face in the picture. Then he folded it gently. "I'll bring them home." The old man stared at him. "You'll go alone." Bruce smiled faintly. Too many people would only make more victims. Late that afternoon, dark clouds gathered above the industrial district. Wind pushed loose sheets of metal against abandoned buildings, producing hollow metallic sounds that echoed through empty streets. Bruce walked alone. No weapons, no body armor, only his black traditional training uniform and simple cloth shoes. His breathing remained calm. Every step was steady. He stopped across the street from the enormous warehouse. Several armed guards watched from the rooftop. Others stood near the entrance, carrying steel pipes and wooden clubs. One of them noticed Bruce immediately. "Hey!" The guard laughed. "I think somebody got lost." The others turned. More laughter followed. Bruce kept walking. Another guard stepped forward. "This place is closed." No answer. "I said stop." Still nothing. The guard swung his metal pipe directly toward Bruce's head. Everything became silent. Bruce shifted barely a few inches. The pipe sliced through empty air. Before the guard understood what had happened, Bruce's open palm struck his chest with explosive precision. The impact sent the man stumbling backward into two others. All three crashed onto the concrete. The laughter vanished instantly. Another 5 men charged together. One attacked from the left. 2 from the front. 2 circled behind. Bruce never looked rushed. His eyes moved constantly. His body flowed between attacks like water, moving around rocks. A punch missed him by less than an inch. He trapped the attacker's wrist, turned his hips. The man's own momentum threw him across the floor. Another swung a heavy chain. Bruce ducked. The chain wrapped around a steel pillar. Before the attacker could free it, Bruce delivered a fast side kick to his ribs. The man collapsed, gasping for air. A third opponent rushed forward with wild punches. Bruce answered with 3 lightning-fast strikes. 1, 2, 3. Each landed with perfect accuracy. The attacker froze before slowly falling onto his knees. The remaining men hesitated. Their confidence disappeared. One whispered nervously, "Who is this guy?" Inside the warehouse, more than 50 gang members heard the noise outside. Black Dragon stood on an elevated steel platform overlooking the entire building. He was massive. Broad shoulders, scarred face, cold eyes that revealed years of violence. One of his lieutenants ran toward him. "Boss, a man is attacking the front entrance." Black Dragon smiled. "One man?" "Yes." "How many has he beaten?" The lieutenant hesitated. 10. The smile disappeared. "What? He isn't slowing down." Black Dragon stood. His heavy boots echoed against the metal walkway. "Send another 20. Outside." Bruce entered the warehouse through the giant loading door. The atmosphere changed immediately. Broken machinery lined both sides of the building. Shipping containers formed narrow corridors. Hanging chains swayed gently above. The entire warehouse resembled a maze. Perfect for an ambush. Bruce knew it. He welcomed it. The lights flickered. Silence. Then, footsteps. Dozens of them. From every direction. 20 armed gang members emerged between the containers. Some carried baseball bats. Others held iron bars. Several carried long wooden staffs. One enormous fighter stepped forward. He was nearly twice Bruce's size. His shaved head reflected the dim industrial lights. "You've made a mistake," he growled. Bruce answered calmly. "No, you already did." The giant roared and charged like a runaway truck. His footsteps shook the concrete floor. Bruce waited. 5 meters. 4, 3, 2. At the final instant, Bruce stepped sideways. The giant crashed shoulder first into a steel container. The impact echoed through the warehouse. Before he recovered, Bruce struck behind the knee, then the shoulder, then the neck. The giant collapsed. The other gang members stared in disbelief. Someone shouted, "Attack together!" The warehouse exploded into chaos. Weapons swung from every direction. Bruce moved continuously. A spinning kick disarmed one attacker. An elbow strike stopped another. A sweeping kick sent 2 men crashing into stacked wooden crates. Splinters filled the air. A chain whipped toward Bruce's face. He caught it, pulled sharply. The attacker lost balance. Bruce redirected him directly into another charging fighter. Both crashed into a forklift. Metal groaned loudly. The battle spread across the enormous warehouse floor. Everywhere Bruce moved, another opponent fell. Not because he fought with anger, but because every movement was efficient. Every strike had purpose. Every defense became an attack. The Iron Vipers had never faced anyone like him. And deep above them, standing on the steel platform, Black Dragon watched silently. For the first time in many years, he was no longer smiling. The echoes of the battle slowly faded across the enormous warehouse. Broken wooden crates lay scattered across the concrete floor. Bent steel pipes rolled to a stop. Groans filled the cold air as defeated members of the Iron Vipers struggled to rise. Bruce Lee stood in complete silence. His breathing remained calm. Not a single unnecessary movement escaped him. Around him, more than 30 gang members lay on the ground, unable to continue fighting. The remaining rebels looked at one another with growing uncertainty. Only minutes earlier they had laughed at the sight of one man entering their fortress. Now fear had replaced arrogance. High above, Black Dragon slowly rested both hands on the rusted railing of the steel platform. His expression hardened. "This isn't a fighter," he muttered. "He's a storm." One of his lieutenants swallowed nervously. "Boss, should we retreat?" Black Dragon's eyes never left Bruce. "No. If we run today, every gang in this city will hunt us tomorrow." He turned toward another lieutenant. "Seal every exit. Nobody leaves this warehouse." Heavy steel doors immediately began sliding shut throughout the building. Massive chains locked into place. Metal slammed against metal. The sound echoed like thunder. Bruce calmly looked around. Every escape route had disappeared. He simply nodded to himself. So, this is how they want to play. Far beyond the main battle area. Inside a narrow hallway hidden behind stacked shipping containers. Several frightened factory workers sat with their hands tied. Some had bruises across their faces. Others had been imprisoned for nearly 2 weeks. Among them was the foreman the elderly factory owner had spoken about. His name was Daniel. He heard the distant sounds of fighting. Punches. Crashing metal. Men shouting. One young worker whispered, "Do you think the police finally came?" Daniel slowly shook his head. "No. The fighting sounded different. Too fast. Too precise." Another loud crash echoed through the corridor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. One of the prisoners looked toward the locked steel door. "Whoever it is, they're getting closer." Hope, something they had almost forgotten, slowly returned to their eyes. Back inside the main warehouse, the Iron Vipers reorganized. Instead of attacking wildly, they spread across the enormous building. Bruce immediately noticed the change. They've learned. 5 men climbed onto suspended cargo platforms. Each carried thick steel chains. Below them, another 15 fighters slowly surrounded Bruce. No one rushed. No one shouted. Even Black Dragon understood that recklessness no longer worked. A whistle echoed. Instantly, the attack began. The men above dropped their chains simultaneously. Bruce rolled forward. The heavy chains crashed onto the concrete exactly where he had been standing. Before they could lift them again, Bruce sprinted toward the nearest steel support beam. His feet barely touched the ground. Using the beam for momentum, he launched himself upward. One precise flying kick struck the first attacker square in the chest. The man lost his balance and tumbled from the platform. Bruce landed lightly. 3 more gang members charged. The first swung a baseball bat. Bruce stepped inside the attack before it reached full speed. A short elbow strike stopped the man's advance instantly. The second aimed an iron bar toward Bruce's shoulder. Bruce redirected the weapon with a simple forearm movement. The iron bar smashed into a nearby crate instead. Without hesitation, Bruce delivered a spinning back kick. The attacker collapsed across the broken wood. The third opponent hesitated. That moment of doubt was enough. Bruce closed the distance. A controlled palm strike ended the confrontation. The remaining fighters tightened their circle. None of them wanted to be the next. Black Dragon crossed his arms. Enough. He looked toward the opposite side of the warehouse. Bring in the crushers. Silence spread among the gang. Even the rebels exchanged nervous glances. One whispered, "Boss, are you sure?" Black Dragon answered without emotion. He defeated ordinary fighters. Let's see how he handles professionals. Massive steel doors opened along the far wall. Slow, heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed through the warehouse. 1, 2, 3, 4 enormous men entered. Each stood well over 6.5 feet tall. Their shoulders looked as wide as industrial barrels. Old scars covered their arms. Their knuckles were permanently swollen from years of underground fighting. Unlike the others, none of them carried weapons. They were weapons. Bruce studied them quietly. The largest smiled. "So, you're Bruce Lee." Bruce nodded politely. "I've heard the same about you." The giant laughed. "Good. I've always wanted to test that reputation." Without another word, he charged. The floor vibrated beneath every step. At the last instant, Bruce pivoted. The giant's fist struck a steel column instead. The impact dented the thick metal. Bruce answered with 3 rapid strikes to the ribs. The giant barely reacted. Instead, he grabbed Bruce's sleeve. Bruce immediately released himself by rotating with the grip rather than fighting against it. The fabric tore free. The giant stumbled. Before Bruce could counter, another crusher attacked from behind. Bruce sensed him without looking. He ducked. The enormous fist sailed over his head. Bruce swept the attacker's legs. The giant lost balance for only a second. But 1 second was enough. Bruce delivered a lightning-fast combination to pressure points along the shoulder and neck. The giant's right arm dropped uselessly. He stared in disbelief. "What? My arms?" Bruce never answered. The remaining 2 crushers attacked together. One from the left, one from the right. Their timing was excellent. Bruce moved between them with astonishing precision. Every movement wasted almost no energy. Every strike created another opening. One giant accidentally punched the other across the jaw. Bruce immediately capitalized. A side kick drove one backward into stacked oil drums. The drums rolled across the warehouse floor, crashing into nearby machinery. Workers imprisoned behind the walls heard the thunderous impact. Daniel looked toward the ceiling. "They're close. Very close." Bruce finally found himself facing the leader of the Crushers, the biggest of the 4. His breathing was heavy. Blood trickled from a cut above one eye. Yet he smiled. "No one's ever pushed us this hard." Bruce stood relaxed. "You don't have to keep fighting." The giant shook his head. "I made my choice years ago." He charged with everything he had left. Bruce didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped directly toward him. The sudden movement confused the giant for a split second. That was enough. Bruce redirected the attack. Using the man's own momentum, he threw the massive fighter across his shoulder. The giant crashed onto the concrete with earth-shaking force. Silence. The other three crushers slowly looked at their fallen leader. Then they looked at Bruce. None of them spoke. One by one, they lowered their fists. The surrounding rebels stared in disbelief. The strongest men in the Iron Vipers had surrendered without another strike. High above, Black Dragon's face darkened. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not frustration, fear. He slowly turned toward the final steel gate hidden behind the warehouse. If the crushers couldn't stop him, his voice became cold. Then it's time to unleash the beast. Far behind the enormous steel doors, something slammed violently against solid metal. The entire warehouse trembled. Bruce slowly lifted his eyes toward the sound. He didn't know what was waiting behind that gate. But he knew one thing. The hardest battle of the day had not yet begun. A deafening crash shook the warehouse. The massive steel gate at the far end bent inward, as if something enormous had slammed into it from the other side. Dust rained from the ceiling. Rust drifted through the beams of sunlight, and everyone inside instinctively stepped backward. Even the Iron Vipers looked uneasy. Bruce remained still. His eyes never left the gate. Black Dragon slowly descended from the steel platform, each heavy step echoing across the warehouse. Confidence had returned to his face. "You've defeated my soldiers," he said. "You've defeated the Crushers. But no one has ever defeated him." Bruce answered quietly. "There is always a first time." Black Dragon smiled. "We'll see." He pulled a heavy steel lever. The warehouse fell silent. The enormous gate unlocked with a metallic groan. One lock, then another, then another. Finally, the doors burst open. A gigantic man emerged from the darkness. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, with shoulders so broad he barely fit through the opening. His arms looked like solid steel beneath torn black clothing. Deep scars covered his forearms, evidence of countless underground fights. The gang called him Titan. Years earlier, he had been one of the most feared illegal pit fighters in the country. No referee had ever stopped his matches because most opponents never lasted long enough. Titan slowly looked toward Bruce. "So, they finally found someone brave enough." Bruce bowed respectfully. Titan looked surprised. "You bow to your enemy." Bruce answered calmly. "I bow to the person. The choices are yours." For several seconds, neither man moved. The entire warehouse became silent. Even the injured gang members stopped groaning. Everyone understood. The real battle was about to begin. Titan suddenly exploded forward. Despite his enormous size, he moved with shocking speed. His first punch cut through the air like a battering ram. Bruce slipped just outside its path. The punch smashed directly into a concrete pillar. Cracks spread across the surface. Chunks of concrete crashed onto the floor. Several gang members backed away in fear. Bruce immediately countered. 3 rapid punches. A side kick. A spinning elbow. Every strike landed cleanly. Titan barely moved. Instead, he smiled. "You hit harder than most, but not hard enough." He swung again. Bruce ducked beneath the enormous arm. Another punch followed immediately. Bruce pivoted. The giant fist destroyed an abandoned wooden crate behind him. Splinters filled the air. Bruce understood immediately. Trading power would be a mistake. This fight required patience. Titan pressed forward relentlessly. Each attack forced Bruce farther into the maze of abandoned machinery. Steel chains hung from the ceiling. Forklifts stood abandoned beside towering shelves. Every obstacle became part of the battlefield. Titan grabbed an empty steel barrel and hurled it. Bruce sidestepped. The barrel slammed into stacked containers with an explosive crash. Without stopping, Titan ripped a loose chain from the ceiling support. The heavy links whipped through the air. Bruce sprang onto a nearby crate. The chain smashed the concrete floor beneath him. Dust erupted. Before Titan recovered, Bruce leaped from the crate. His flying side kick struck Titan's shoulder. The impact forced the giant back 2 steps. For the first time, the Iron Vipers gasped. He actually moved him. Titan rubbed his shoulder. His smile faded. Now, he was taking Bruce seriously. Black Dragon watched silently. One of his lieutenants whispered, "Boss, what if Titan loses?" Black Dragon's eyes narrowed. He won't. Yet his voice lacked the certainty it once carried. The battle intensified. Titan abandoned brute force. Instead, he began trapping Bruce against machinery and walls. It was surprisingly intelligent. Bruce realized someone had trained him. Titan threw combinations instead of wild punches. Power, control, timing. Bruce smiled slightly. Much better. Titan answered with another devastating hook. Bruce blocked. The impact sent vibrations through his entire arm. He slid several feet across the concrete. Pain shot through his shoulder. For the first time that day, Bruce had absorbed a direct strike. The gang erupted into cheers. He's hurt. Finish him. Titan advanced slowly. You can't keep avoiding me forever. Bruce rotated his shoulder once. The pain remained. But so did his focus. You've become stronger. Titan nodded. So have you. Then both men rushed forward at the same instant. The warehouse exploded with movement. Punch met block. Kick met elbow. Every exchange happened almost too quickly to follow. Workers imprisoned nearby could only hear the thunder outside. Daniel whispered, "Whoever he is, he's still fighting." Bruce suddenly noticed something. Titan always shifted his weight onto his right leg before throwing his strongest punch. Only slightly. Almost invisible. But consistent. Bruce stored the information. The next exchange came. Titan attacked. Bruce avoided. Again. The same shift. Again. The pattern repeated. Bruce finally understood. Years earlier, Titan had suffered an old knee injury. He compensated without realizing it. Bruce didn't attack immediately. He waited. Timing mattered more than speed. Several more exchanges followed. Sweat covered both fighters. Titan breathed heavily now. Bruce's sleeve had been torn away. Bruises appeared across his ribs. Neither man looked unbeatable anymore. This wasn't about strength. It had become a contest of endurance. Then, Titan committed to his most powerful attack. His right foot planted firmly. Weight shifted. Shoulders rotated. Bruce moved. Not backward. Forward. Inside the attack. His forearm redirected the punch. His left hand controlled Titan's elbow. A sharp low kick struck the weakened right knee. Titan lost balance for only an instant. That instant was enough. Bruce spun. A perfectly timed side kick drove directly into Titan's chest. The enormous man staggered backward. 1 step. 2. 3. Then his back slammed into a steel support column. The entire warehouse shook. Silence followed. Titan remained standing. Barely. He looked at Bruce for several long seconds. Then, he slowly lowered his fists. I've lost. No one spoke. The words echoed through the building. Titan, the undefeated beast of the Iron Vipers, had admitted defeat. Bruce walked toward him. Instead of celebrating, he extended his hand. Titan stared at it. After a long pause, he accepted. The warehouse watched in complete silence. Respect had replaced hatred. Titan turned toward Black Dragon. It's over. Black Dragon's face twisted with fury. No, it's only beginning. Without warning, he pulled a concealed detonator from inside his coat. A loud alarm suddenly echoed through the warehouse. Red emergency lights began flashing. Deep beneath the floor, powerful explosions shook the foundations. Steel beams groaned. Workers screamed from the hidden prison rooms. Daniel looked upward as pieces of concrete crashed around them. The building. It's collapsing. Black Dragon laughed. If I can't rule this place, no one leaves alive. Bruce's eyes locked onto him. In that single moment, the fight was no longer about defeating criminals. It was about saving every innocent life trapped inside the collapsing warehouse. Black Dragon sprinted toward the upper control room, while flames began appearing along one side of the building. Bruce immediately chased after him. Behind him, Titan shouted, "Bruce, I'll get the workers out." Bruce nodded once without looking back. As fire spread through the old warehouse and steel beams groaned overhead, Bruce raced up the narrow iron staircase after the fleeing gang leader. The final confrontation had begun. The warehouse groaned like a wounded giant. Steel beams twisted under unbearable pressure. Thick smoke rolled across the ceiling, swallowing the daylight that had poured through the broken skylights only minutes before. Emergency alarms screamed through every corridor, mixing with the sounds of collapsing concrete and frightened voices. Bruce Lee raced up the narrow iron staircase without slowing down. Each step shook beneath his feet. Behind him, Titan barked orders to the remaining gang members. If you want to survive, stop fighting. Help the prisoners. Some hesitated. Others looked toward Black Dragon, waiting for commands. But Black Dragon had already abandoned them. He disappeared into the control room, overlooking the entire warehouse. Bruce reached the second level. The metal walkway stretched across the building nearly 30 feet above the concrete floor. Smoke drifted between the beams. Visibility dropped with every passing second. Suddenly, a steel pipe swung toward Bruce's head. He leaned backward just enough for it to whistle past his face. Another attacker emerged from the smoke. Then another. Black Dragon had stationed his most loyal bodyguards here. Unlike the others, these men had no intention of surrendering. The first bodyguard lunged with a combat knife. Bruce stepped to the outside of the attack, trapping the man's wrist before redirecting the knife harmlessly into the metal railing. The blade snapped. Before the attacker recovered, Bruce struck his shoulder with a precise palm strike. The man collapsed. The second bodyguard attacked with a heavy wrench. Bruce slipped underneath the swing. His elbow landed cleanly against the man's ribs. The wrench clattered across the walkway. A third attacker rushed forward. Bruce used the fallen wrench as an obstacle. The man stumbled. Bruce swept his legs, sending him sliding into stacked toolboxes. Metal crashed loudly across the catwalk. The remaining guards froze. None of them had expected such speed. Bruce calmly raised one hand. "You don't have to continue." One bodyguard looked toward the control room, then toward the smoke filling the building. Finally, he lowered his fists. The others followed. Bruce continued toward the control room. Inside, Black Dragon frantically pulled open steel cabinets. Maps, money, weapons. He threw everything into a large duffel bag. His breathing had become uneven. For the first time in years, he looked afraid. The control room door burst open. Bruce stepped inside. The room fell silent. Only the alarm continued echoing. Black Dragon slowly turned. "I should have eliminated you the moment you arrived." Bruce remained calm. "You still have time. Help the workers leave." Black Dragon laughed bitterly. "Leave? I built this empire with fear. If it dies, I'll make sure everyone dies with it." He reached beneath the control panel and pulled out two short steel batons. Unlike every other opponent Bruce had faced, Black Dragon stood perfectly balanced. Bruce immediately understood. The gang leader had hidden his true abilities all along. Without warning, Black Dragon attacked. His speed shocked even Bruce. The steel batons spun with remarkable precision. One narrowly missed Bruce's temple. The second struck the control panel, showering sparks across the room. Bruce countered with a straight punch. Black Dragon blocked. Their forearms collided with tremendous force. Neither man moved. Black Dragon smiled. "You finally found someone worthy." Bruce answered quietly. "This isn't about proving who's stronger. It's about ending this." Black Dragon attacked again. This time, his movements became even faster. He switched constantly between offense and defense. Years of underground combat had made him exceptionally dangerous. Bruce found himself retreating for the first time that day. Not from fear, from respect. Every mistake now could cost innocent lives. Outside the control room, Titan and several former gang members smashed open prison doors. Daniel stumbled into the hallway. Workers poured out one after another. Some could barely walk. Others carried injured friends on their shoulders. Flames spread through the western side of the warehouse. A steel beam crashed onto the concrete below. Titan shouted, "Move! Don't stop!" The prisoners hurried toward the nearest emergency exit. Inside the control room, Bruce and Black Dragon exchanged another rapid series of attacks. Punch, block, elbow, counter, kick, deflection. Neither fighter wasted movement. Black Dragon suddenly spun, striking Bruce across the shoulder with one baton. Bruce absorbed the impact. Pain shot through his arm. Before Black Dragon could follow up, Bruce redirected the second baton with his forearm. The weapon flew from Black Dragon's hand. The gang leader immediately switched tactics. He tackled Bruce through the control room doorway. Both men crashed onto the narrow steel walkway. Below them, the warehouse burned. Workers ran toward freedom. Smoke climbed higher every second. The iron walkway trembled violently. Another explosion echoed beneath them. Several bolts snapped loose. The platform tilted. Still, neither fighter stopped. Black Dragon threw a heavy punch. Bruce avoided it. The punch smashed through the metal railing. Another section collapsed into the fire below. Bruce answered with a controlled side kick. Black Dragon staggered backward. His heel reached the edge of the broken walkway. For a brief moment, he nearly fell, yet somehow regained his balance. His face twisted with desperation. If I lose everything. Bruce looked directly into his eyes. No, you lost everything the day you chose fear over honor. Those words struck deeper than any punch. Black Dragon roared. He charged with every ounce of strength he had left. Bruce waited. 1 step. 2. 3. At the final instant, Bruce pivoted. His left hand guided Black Dragon's arm. His right palm struck firmly against the gang leader's chest. Not with anger, with perfect timing. Black Dragon's momentum carried him forward. He crashed onto the weakened section of the walkway. The steel gave way beneath him. The platform collapsed. Black Dragon grabbed desperately for the edge. One hand remained hanging above the flames below. Bruce immediately dropped to one knee. He reached down. Their hands locked together. Black Dragon stared upward in disbelief. You're trying to save me. Bruce tightened his grip. I don't fight to destroy people. I fight to stop violence. For a long second, neither moved. Then Black Dragon looked at the burning warehouse. He saw his defeated followers carrying injured workers. He saw Titan rescuing children. He saw everything he had built disappearing forever. Tears mixed with soot on his face. I was wrong. Bruce pulled him upward. Together they climbed back onto the remaining section of the platform. At that exact moment, the final support beam collapsed. The entire control room crashed into the flames behind them. They escaped only seconds before the upper level disappeared completely. Outside, firefighters finally arrived. Emergency vehicles surrounded the enormous warehouse. Rescue teams treated injured workers. One by one, every hostage was accounted for. Not a single innocent life had been lost. Police officers arrested the remaining members of the Iron Vipers without resistance. Black Dragon quietly surrendered. He never looked away from Bruce. Titan approached slowly. I spent my life believing strength belonged to the strongest fighter. He extended his hand. Today I learned it belongs to the man who can defeat an enemy and still choose mercy. Bruce shook his hand. The greatest victory is changing what happens after the fight. As dawn broke over the city the next morning, the smoke had disappeared. The old warehouse stood in ruins, but fear no longer lived there. Factory workers gathered outside the damaged building. Families embraced loved ones they thought they would never see again. The elderly factory owner walked toward Bruce with tears in his eyes. You kept your promise. Bruce smiled gently. I only reminded them that every choice has another path. Without waiting for praise. Without speaking to reporters. Without celebrating. Bruce Lee quietly walked down the empty street as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the city. Behind him remained a ruined warehouse. Ahead of him lay another day, another challenge, and another opportunity to protect those who could not protect themselves. Because Bruce Lee believed that true strength was never measured by the number of opponents defeated. It was measured by the number of lives saved.